Matt Taibbi, I told you he writes really good articles. I like his articles here because I said he gets straight to the point. He brought up a topic that I think we need to be talking about, and it involves the Second Amendment. He's talking about the fact, is it possible that there's some type of hypocrisy with the Second Amendment when you're talking about Black people arming themselves? Listen to this. Now, this is on his Substack, TK News. Check this out. This article is titled, "Activism Uncensored. Are Black Second Amendment Advocates the Ultimate Taboo?" I don't know, Matt. Let's see. I'm not going to read the entire article, but there's a couple parts I want to point out. If people aren't going to do their job, then we're here to do it for them. Now, that's coming from Nick Bezel. He's from the Elmer Geronimo Pratt Pistol and Rifle Gun Club. After being told for the second time today that officials in Brookhaven, Mississippi wouldn't meet with him and other armed Black activists. Bezel was with a group of demonstrators, including Black Panthers, who were upset over a case involving a 24-year-old Federal Express driver named DeMontario Gibson. On January 24th, earlier this year, Gibson was shot by a man named Brandon Chase and his father, Gregory Chase, while attempting to make deliveries. If you are not familiar with that story, I think I tried to get him on. I couldn't find contact information. There was a guy, he worked for FedEx. He was driving through a neighborhood where there was obviously racist people. Again, just doing his job. He was in the FedEx truck. Two men came outside and shot at him, shot at the truck multiple times. Obviously, you know, he kept driving, what I think is the best thing there, and he did not get out of the truck. He reported the incident to his employer, to FedEx, and FedEx, I guess they tried to pretend like they understood and told him, okay, you need some time off. You know, obviously that's going to shake somebody up. So he needed some time off to deal with what the hell just happened. Like, he just got gunned down while he was doing his job. Do you know that FedEx fired him? They fired him. So this was a big story a couple of months ago. So this group, this Black activist group, they want to know why this still hasn't been taken care of. So that's what Matt's discussing here in this article. So I'm gonna go back in. The two cases were eventually charged with assault, but bonded out quickly. That means they got out on bail. Gibson and the accompanying group wanted elevated charges, for instance, attempted murder or a hate crime. News cameras captured the scenes of activists being told a planned meeting with a district attorney was called off and being thrown out of the area by the Brookhaven police chief just as they were leaving. 2 days later, a coalition of Black pro-gun groups, including Black Panthers. So for those of you who have asked me this before, are there still any Black Panther members? Yes, there are. The Black Riders Liberation Party, the aforementioned Elmer Geronimo Pratt Gun Club, Sisters of the Underground, the Huey P. Newton Gun Club, the Black Power Militia, the Black Power Coalition, and others gathered on Juneteenth in Natchez, Mississippi, at the site of Devil's Punch Bowl, where some historians say up to 20,000 Black people died during and after the Civil War. NewsShare captured those scenes as well, which included a collective signing of a declaration of the Regulated United Black Militia. Some protesters brandish a placard with a declaration of self-determination by Black peoples and organizations, while others replaced "Hands up, don't shoot" with a new chant. Let me jump down here. There are a lot of taboos on commercial television, which, for instance, doesn't like to show scenes of poverty unless it's being chased by police. Rarely interviews non-voters, almost never does military contracting fraud stories and seldom shows results on the ground of American military drone strikes, even if they've already appeared on the airwaves of other countries. Perhaps the most dependable taboo in American media, however, involves Black Second Amendment advocates. Ford and NewsShare have documented over the years there are many such groups, and they sometimes march in conjunction with groups like the Boogaloo Boys. So remember that time that Jimmy Dore brought a Boogaloo Boy on his show that he saw marching with Black Lives Matter protesters? So here's Matt Taibbi confirming that, yes, sometimes they do, I guess, connect. Now, there's different fractions of the Boogaloo Boys. Just keep that in mind. But apparently the one that Magnus was a part of connected with Black Lives Matter. So let's go back in. In fact, the biggest taboo of all might be showing such groups demonstrating together. And then here's a picture here where you'll see today Black Lives Matter and Boogaloo protesters joined forces for an open carry rally against police violence and government overreach. So there's the pictures there. Whatever you're feeling about guns, I am personally not a fan. The psychology of the contrasting coverage of pro-gun demonstrations is fascinating. News audiences are clearly meant to associate white pro-gun protesters with a dangerous and probably organized national race hatred movement, while Black pro-gun protesters either don't exist or are a fringe movement not worth covering. Under no circumstance must such groups be shown together, even when they are organized co-demonstration. The first installment of Activism Uncensored from last June, for instance, showed such a joint demonstration in Virginia Beach. And then here you go again here. It says BLM 757 and Boogaloo Boys team up for Virginia Beach rally. So apparently this has happened more than once. It goes on to say it's often hard to gauge whether certain movements are gaining or losing strength nationally or are simply organizing more effectively thanks to the internet. However, it is clear the national press doesn't have a settled upon strategy for covering armed Black protesters. Now, I want to ask you this. Why is that? Why do you think they don't really want to cover that? Because it doesn't fit their narrative. I want to show you something that I remember. It was actually my parents that told me about this. This is about Ronald Reagan having an issue with Black people carrying guns, whether they had a permit or not. Listen to this. I want to read a small portion of this. Ronald Reagan's moment of massive historical irony, how armed Black men led to gun control. A lot of people don't know about this. You'd be surprised. Ronald Reagan, I don't know if everyone remembers, but you can probably still find these ads on YouTube. Ronald Reagan used to have these ads when he was running for president, describing him as like the all-American guy. So it would show him chopping wood, having a shotgun, the all-American guy. That was the message they were trying to get across. Ronald Reagan supported the Second Amendment. What Ronald Reagan did not support was Black people supporting the Second Amendment. Listen to this. Ronald Reagan's moment of massive historical irony, how armed Black men led to gun control. Now, this right here says when armed Black Panthers showed up at the California State Capitol in 1967, they probably saved thousands of lives. So that's the Black Panthers in Sacramento. May 2nd, 1967, The destinies of Huey Newton, Bobby Seale, and Ronald Reagan collided. The day saved untold thousands of lives. At the time, California was an open carry state with few gun restrictions. Governor Reagan was on the steps of the state capitol to meet and share lunch with a group of visiting eighth graders when Newton, Seale, and nearly 30 other Black Panthers pulled up out front in a small caravan of cars. Armed with everything from pistols to 12-gauge shotguns, they climbed the half-dozen steps to the area around the front doors of the building. Seale pulled out a prepared statement and read it to the students. And this was the statement. Black people have begged, prayed, petitioned, demonstrated, and everything else to get the racist power structure of America to right the wrongs which have historically been perpetuated against Black people. The time has come for Black people to arm themselves against this terror before it is too late. They walked into the building to confront the state's police and legislatures, fully loaded guns and rifles in their hands. Reagan was aghast, and the nearly all-white California legislator panicked. There's no reason why on the street today a citizen should be carrying a loaded weapon. That came from Ronald Reagan. Couldn't say his name there for a second. Within a few weeks, Republican Assemblyman Don Mulford, with bipartisan support, introduced into California Assembly a law, AB 1591, to ban people in California from carrying loaded weapons in public. So for those of you who were not aware, now you know where that came from. And it's been this way since. It's been this way since. Why is it okay for a white person to have a permit to carry and the police seem to be okay about that or give them the benefit of the doubt? But when we look at some of these cases where a Black person had a permit to carry a mere lock, the police don't give them the benefit of the doubt first and they shoot and kill them. That is because when it comes to the Second Amendment, there is a stereotype there and there's hypocrisy. Because what I've noticed a lot of times when people say that they're pro-gun and they're for the Second Amendment, particularly this comes from white people, no shade, but just being honest, they're talking about people like them. A lot of times they're talking about people like them being okay. They're okay with them carrying guns. But when you have a group of Black people who support the Second Amendment and are carrying those arms, that's when the masses tend to get nervous. And that's not the first time that's happened. If you go back and you look at the history of slavery in this country, at one point, there were so many slaves here that it got to the point where the slaves started to outnumber white people. And they didn't like that. That was a scary moment for white people in this country because the first thing they thought was, uh-oh, are they going to rise up just like Haitians did and have their own revolution against us? Are they going to treat us the way that we've been treating them? The Second Amendment exhibits some sort of power for people. Some people have a gun because it makes them feel powerful. Some people have one because it makes them feel safe. What I have often noticed is it seems like when it comes to power, there seems to be certain people that people feel should have it. And a lot of times that's not African Americans. So that's a good piece there by Matt Taibbi. He also wrote this with Ford, I believe. Check him out on Substack if you haven't checked out his Substack, guys. It's really good stuff, like I said. I mean, I usually do a lot of reading on Substack, so that's kind of my go-to, to be honest. Keeping it reals.